This episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Welcome to the 12 Monkeys podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Sci-Fi Channel's reimagining of the classic science fiction film originally produced by Terry Gilliam and now produced for television by Terry Matalas. I'm your host, Blaire Nightgraves, executive producer of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Trembley, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at BlaireLovesTV and at KyleLovesTV, and you can follow this podcast's Twitter handle at 12MonkeysPod. Hi, Kyle. How you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, usually I have some kind of clever, or hopefully clever thing to say at this, but I'm just worried. Are you okay after this episode? This was quite an emotional wallop here.
It was, and I think you might be referencing the fact that I tweeted like 5 different times that I was crying.
Yeah, I'm basing that on the yes.
I often will tweet I'm crying and not mean it.
Yeah.
So I felt the need to tweet multiple times. No, really, guys, I am crying.
Yeah, you had to clarify. You weren't exaggerating for comedic effect.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So no, I'm a little bit sad right now, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I don't believe that this is the end for Jones.
No, I'd say pretty. I'd be pretty confident that it's not, to be honest.
Yes. Well, and also just like she didn't get the classic a character's dying tropes with any of this episode. She was barely in this episode.
Yeah.
So to have her be killed in an episode that she is hardly featured in would seem odd to me.
And we've seen a number of characters die and return from death due to the nature of time travel. Most recently, 5 minutes ago with Jennifer.
Yes.
But also we've seen Cassie die. You know, I mean, this has happened before. I don't think death is a permanent condition for many of our characters on 12 Monkeys.
And for people who pay a lot of attention to the advertisements for 12 Monkeys on Sci-Fi Channel, there was a clip featuring Jones that has not yet happened in the show. So
that's a good clue.
It wasn't in the next time on, but it was in a different ad.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how 12 Monkeys is going to end. And hopefully it doesn't end in 2 episodes. Hopefully it gets a 3rd, 4th, and 5th season, however long it needs to tell the story.
Well, Terry Matalas said they need 4 seasons to tell the story. So
and a 3rd and 4th season.
Yes, we need that. But I should tell our audience really quickly that today we are discussing Season 2, Episode 11, Resurrection, which was written by Richard Robbins. Now we can speak about it.
Yes. Well, I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how the show's going to end, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to just... I mean, if at least one of these missions that our 2 parties now are on doesn't succeed, that would be the end of things. And I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to end like this unless the show gets stupidly canceled by Sci-Fi. So, yes. So I do think we're going to see some more of Jones in our lab crew here, regardless of how this all resolves itself.
Yes, one can only hope, because this show I just need more of it.
Yeah.
I need so much more.
This was really good tonight. It was a really, really good episode. The first of a 3-part finale. That's like a quarter of the season is the finale.
Yes, it's a 3-part finale, and we're skipping next week, but because it's 4th of July. So I understand, but we're skipping next week.
A bit. I mean, it hurts a bit to just go out on this note with a lot of balls in the air and to have to wait an extra week.
Yes, it does. But, maybe my heart will calm down with the extra week and I'll be okay.
Your heart will calm down and your heart will go on.
No, I'm not going to do it.
No.
I almost did it. I almost sang Celine Dion for all of you.
Yeah,
but then it would have been great, but I would have gotten a cease and desist.
Yes.
Unlike Deacon, who was singing Don't You Forget About Me.
Deacon! If you haven't listened to our interview with Todd Stashwick, a.k.a. Deacon, please go 1 podcast episode back in our feed and listen to it. I was excited that we talked to him a few days, or 1 day before, 3 days before this episode aired? Time again is a circle for me.
Yes.
But yeah, the episode was released yesterday. We talked to him on Thursday. Yeah, what a Deacon episode, man.
Yes.
What an episode for Deacon.
What an episode for Deacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, our interview with Todd Skashwick was absolutely delightful. And then, he hinted that this coming episode was going to be a great Deacon episode, and boy, he was correct.
Yeah. We learned that Deacon's life philosophy is that clothes, who needs them? Really, when you think about it, they're overrated. And yeah.
We also learned that there is a limit to his alcohol consumption.
Yeah, and he hit that limit about 4 times.
Yep.
Within the first scene of this episode.
And that I think we knew this, but he is a vengeful man.
And he doesn't like being called by his real name.
No, he does not. Theodore, a.k.a. Teddy, a.k.a. Deacon.
Yeah. Really took a jump there in that final transformation.
Yes. I was so thrilled by the fact that after getting his heart broken that he just became an asshole to Cassie. Like, I'm not really thrilled by it because I partially ship them, but I was really thrilled by it because he just went for it. He just went with, no.
Yeah.
No, obviously I'm mad at you, and that's obviously why I'm doing this.
That was a great scene where she says, I know it's nothing personal. And he's like, oh, no, it's 100% personal.
Right.
Because it's so true to the character. He doesn't care what Cole and company do. Like, he has no reason to be on Team Cole over Team Cassie and Ramsey. Except this personal vendetta that he sort of laid it all on the table, and Cassie very coldly rejected him. And so, yeah, I believe Deacon. He's the Scav King. He's not, he's not above taking this personally. He's not someone who's got the greater good of the world in mind. He's acting out of pure self-interest. And it's like, yeah, that's who the character is.
He does hate Ramsey. He has hated Ramsey for a long time.
Right. So he was playing nice because of his crush on Cassie, but when she shot that down, suddenly he was more receptive to Cole's pitches, even in his drunken state. Cole's pep talk that got him going, which again, another great Deacon moment when he's like, all right, Cole, let's go save the world, and then he just throws up everywhere.
Perfect comedic timing.
Right. And he also slipped in there he was actually effective in helping take over the facility, very easily subduing Whitley with a surprise attack. It's just a powerhouse performance by Deacon this week.
Yes, he did what he needed to do, and he made it happen. Although it sounds like he probably won't be joining us for the next 2 episodes.
Yeah. Which
makes me wonder if he was technically enveloped by the Red Forest.
Well, he did shoot Jennifer and kill her. So
yes.
And then it seemed like he got a bit of a choppy to the neck there. Something happened to him, right? One of the daughters.
It was to his face.
To his face, yeah, slashed him.
It was Hannah, who is Jones's daughter slash really, she loves Jennifer. Just slashed him across the face and may have taken out an eyeball.
Yeah. So that went badly. And then I assumed that he was sort of writhing on the ground as the Red Forest hit. But again, that is not a permanent condition because our 2 crews now are actively trying to undo that. So
yes.
Yeah.
Cassie and Ramsey successfully escaped with Adler. Escaped, they were let go by Whitley.
Yeah. Right.
And tried to take the fortress by force and failed miserably in every attempt.
well, it worked. I mean, they easily, aside from Cole shooting Adler, and then Cassie easily subduing Cole, which was a good moment. Cassie just beats up Cole. And then Jones headbutting. Was it who did Jones headbutt? Ramsey. Which was a great moment.
Yeah, this will be the last time you hold a gun to me.
Yeah, but other than those two moments, it was a pretty easy taking over, except that Cole went out and brought in the reinforcements, a.k.a. Jennifer and the daughters, and they came back and took it back in fast succession.
So I have to say, I have liked Emily Hampshire's performance a lot, but I haven't necessarily liked the character Jennifer. until this episode. I mean, I've gone back.
You've come around on her performance.
Yeah.
We had a lot of season 1 episodes where we argued about her performance.
Yes, that's true. I did come around on the performance specifically, but now I think I've officially come around on the character.
Yeah.
With the chicken and the egg.
I mean, that scene was that was a unimpeachably good scene between those two. Even for people who aren't fans of any aspect of that character or that performance, that was an outstanding scene. Where past Jennifer, young Jennifer meets old Jennifer.
Yes, I need a moment with myself.
Yeah, great. Just great.
Great moments all around. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I really, I think, one of the things that I've struggled with Jennifer is that she's always seemed, at least young Jennifer in particular, I've always liked older Jennifer. Young Jennifer is so passive in her own story. She just lets Cole come and take her away, and she did try to take control with the hyenas, which obviously I didn't like very much. But other than that, she's been just extremely, okay, I'll give you the disease, I'll do this, I'll do that. Like, I've never really felt like she's always 100% on her own team, in terms of making like her own decisions. And I like that old Jennifer finally made new Jennifer make her own decision and told her what the decision that happened that led her into that moment. And it was just so well done, because I can imagine a world where that not necessarily would have been, but it just worked. I guess I'm not being as eloquent about it as I'd like to be, but it just worked, and it made me believe in her and believe in her sort of like ability to take charge and watch her really like become the chicken.
Yes, which is normally a bad thing, but in this case, a good thing.
Yes,
I think there's a lot of validity to that she hasn't had the most agency in her own story, but I think that's also due to her status in the story as a primary, which is a term we only learned this season. And she started off as someone who was, I think, treated as a bad guy on the show, and someone who seemed like a negative force. And it's only been this season that she's sort of fully converted. And this episode was, I think, the sort of at least the conclusion to the Act 1 of Jennifer Gomez. That this idea that she's now been empowered by her future self to do something, very aggressive and very proactive in now leading Ramsey and the daughters to Titan, whatever that is, and trying to take down the Witness directly, which I suspect, I'm sure we'll talk about some predictions as we go, but I suspect that's going to go poorly.
I suspect that as well.
Yeah. I think the Witness, I think we're going to lose a character for real, and I think it's going to be Ramsey. I think we're going to lose Ramsey for real.
Not Kirk Acevedo.
Yeah. Well, Ramsey is a weird character in the story, and this could be like a Force Awakens thing that happens in these next 2 episodes, where Ramsey and the daughters make their way into Titan, whatever it is, and they come face to face with the Witness, and they realize that it's Sam, Ramsey's son. Mm-hmm. And Ramsey comes face to face with his own son, and his own son kills him.
Yes.
That's my prediction for what's going to happen. And that the daughters probably retreat back. But that the Paradox story in 1957 goes successfully for Cole and now Cassie, and that stops the Red Forest temporarily. That brings us Jones back and Deacon back and the whole sort of crew that was vaporized back.
Are we going to do another one of those things where they all start to sort of like reverse and like when Jones was walking through time reset itself?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
my prediction. Is that Cole and Cassie succeed, Ramsey fails, and Ramsey dies. Is my prediction for the finale.
That was basically going to be my prediction too, because Cole has to choose one of his 2 great love stories, and his 2 great love stories are going to be Cassie and Ramsey being, the love story of friendship. The bromance.
Of course.
the great and olden bromance. And I think that's going to become, another point of vengeance for him and get him onto the same side as Cassie in terms of needing to avenge somebody for the witness. Cassie feels like she needs to avenge herself. Ramsay feels like he needs to avenge his son, and then Cole having to avenge Ramsay. So I would definitely go in with that.
Yeah, that would make sense. Cole doesn't really have an emotional stake in this right now. You're right. That he needs that. Although he had a very emotional scene with Jones later in this episode that I thought really paid off that whole story nicely. And I think the show did a really great job. Because as we talked about with the last episode, we sort of had this Cassie and Ramsay versus Cole and Jones argument going on, and you and I were on opposite sides of that argument. And as we agreed, the show was taking Cassie's side of that argument. And I think it was really nice to see the show not buckle and just say that Cassie was right about everything. It did a very even solution. Basically both sides are right, and we're going to do both things. But then it gave that payoff moment of Cole hugging Jones. That was a really nice way to say, like, hey, you're the one person who stuck with me. That Cole is the one person in this facility who kept his faith with Jones, and she appreciates that.
Yeah, that started my feels real hard, right?
Yeah.
Right into the moment where they killed Jones.
Of course.
I'm sorry. No, I thought that was a really great moment. And, per usual, Barbara Sukua's performance is just there are no words. Yeah. She just has a handle. I like what Todd Stashwick said in our interview with him in the last episode, that there's no character like her on TV. And I know he started to say that about other characters too, but he started it with Jones. Yeah. And that's really something that I feel too. I feel like this is a character that I don't know if I've ever seen before, and I don't know if I ever will see again. Somebody who has so much belief in themselves and yet has no really humility, but then very rarely shows emotion. It only shows them in the right time. I mean, there's more to it than that, but there's nobody like Jones on TV. Yeah. And yeah,
that's right. And I can't really put it into words either. Like, I don't know what it is about her necessarily, but I definitely agree with that sentiment, that you just don't see a lot of characters like her. And honestly, maybe it's that, like, as far as like dramatic television goes, there aren't that many women like in their 40s and older on like when you relative to how many people are cast in total, there aren't that many women in of this age who are playing this kind of role where she has a lot of agency and she is, I mean, she's headbutting dudes and she's like, she gets to be like a very active character, and she's brilliant and solves problems, but she also has this emotional side. It's like that's not a character that you see a ton, especially in sci-fi.
She's a boss, and she has expertise and knowledge and experience, and it's not in like a matronly way. It's very much like the respected. You do see the respected scientists on television, but not in this way.
Yeah, she's not the den mother of this crew. She's not playing the mother figure of the crew in a way that you see on a lot of where a lot of times this character would be like sort of nurturing and loving and giving tough love and giving pep talks, and that's not Jones.
No.
Jones is still very much a scientist and still very committed to her ideals, and yeah, it's a very different kind of character, and anytime, I mean, I love that she didn't give in to Ramsay's hostile takeover of the lab at all. She was not down with it. She didn't acquiesce or anything.
Well, she also doesn't soften when emotional things happen to her. Like she like Hannah came into her life, and that didn't change Jones at all.
Yes, that's true.
That's remarkable, I think. I don't think, and I think that's one of the things that makes no character like her on television, not just female character, but character like her, that it doesn't sway her from the mission. It gives her a momentary piece of happiness. Yeah. But that's it. It doesn't, like Cassie, she's mission oriented.
Yes. Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
Well, you brought up Cassie, and Cassie did sway from her personal mission at the end of this episode. But we finally, after a season of Cassie, I think you and I both agree we liked this, but Cassie being very I don't want to say strong-willed, even though that's true, because that would imply that this was a weak-willed decision. When I think the show played it as actually a stronger decision than continuing to do what she do, which is a viewpoint that I agree with, actually. I think, to me, the argument that I articulated last week is that Cassie was... Well, not Cassie. Cassie and Ramsey were essentially being bad guys. That they were doing a bad thing, even if they're... I don't even know if they were well-intentioned, because revenge seemed to be a primary motive. But they were giving in a way and betraying people who trust them in a way that I did not like. And to me, Cassie's reversal in this episode was actually a sign of strength, that she recognized that what she was doing was not the best thing, that sending Cole back to 1957 on his own was not going to maximize their chance of success. And if Cassie is as business-oriented as she likes to think she is, then she better help him. And she needs to help him.
Well, and she's a character that takes in information and then acts on that information. And I think that's exactly what you're just saying, is that she evaluated the situation, and whether that evaluation had some emotional pull or not, the evaluation was that the best chance that they had of anything was not going off into the impending red forest that's killing everybody just to have a little moment of revenge, but actually to try to save the lives of all of these people. And I think a lot of that probably had to do with seeing Jennifer get killed, whom she's grown an affection for, taking in more of the gravity of the situation outside of a little scheme that she's got going in her head.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is Cassie always makes decisions like that, and is certainly has been the sort of most pragmatic decision maker on the show, I think, in the aggregate. But I would say that her decision to team up with Ramsey was not a pragmatic decision. They did that based on one shred of evidence in a heavily redacted report, and they basically got lucky. As we talked about this last week, we don't need to relitigate, but it's like, that, to me, was not a high percentage decision that she made. She made a mistake, basically, in terms of... If we're talking about pragmatic decision-making, the odds that puny little lead she had in that redacted report would actually lead to something were terrible. And they worked out, but she made a bad decision pursuing it. And I think, it goes unspoken, but I think she realized that this week. And
yes.
That's what prompted her decision at the end, is that, wait a minute, like... Jennifer just confirmed it. Like, this is an important thing to go back and to fix this paradox in 1957. Like, maybe we don't know what we're getting into with Titan. We don't know anything about it. Sending Cole back, this is a 50-50 mission, and sending Cole back on his own. I mean, good Lord, Cole can barely even walk and talk at the same time. Like, if he's going to be back there on his own with no help, with no lab in the future to bring him back, like he's just permanently stranded there, that is a terrible percentage chance of that happening. And so then your only hope is that you can somehow kill the witness, even though you don't even really know what the witness is or what his powers are or what he can do. It's like, yeah, there's a clear path to take here for Cassie that she eventually saw.
And with Cole going back, he also doesn't know who this primary is, and he has no way of finding out, and he has no, as we have established time and time again, he has no knowledge of American history.
Yes.
So him going back to 1957 is sending in a blank slate into a very strange era.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and they were back in 1961, I think, last week. So Cole has a little taste of the sort of beginning of Mad Men era of U.S. history. But yeah, I mean, Cole's helpless. Like, remember that fancy ball scene earlier in the past where Cassie sort of navigated him through that? Like, Cole's not gonna pull all of this off by himself.
Right. No, he will not.
I think the show let Cassie have an emotional moment there at the end, sort of admitting to Cole that she's ready to move on from this revenge kick that she's been on. But also, I think to give Cassie credit, she realized that Cole needs her, and the world needs Cole to succeed, and they have such better odds to succeed if she's there with him. And so it's just like let's get back to doing what's best for the world here, and let's do this. So
which is what Cassie is known for this season.
That's what she's known for. That's what she briefly got away from, and I like that the show, even without any sort of hand-wringing or bringing it up, the show acknowledged that. I think with this, the fact that Cassie abandoned Ramsay, and his revenge scheme, I think speaks to Cassie realizing that she had made a mistake to do it in the first place, even though it technically worked out because it gave him the lead on Titan and all that. I think she's recognizing that Cole and Jones kind of had the right idea, at least in the short term, if you want to prevent the Red Forest in this whole stopping the paradox thing.
Absolutely. You know what this finale is definitely going to give us?
What?
More Agent Gale!
Agent Gale! Yes!
He said they'd been friends for a long time, and he's definitely not dead in 1957, and they are most definitely going to have to deal with him.
Absolutely. Oh, that's very exciting. Yeah, we got to get Agent Gale back on screen, even though he just died.
Yes. just to help me feel better about Jones.
Yes, right. Yeah, got to make you feel better. It's going to be interesting how at least this next episode's going to play out, because we're not going to have any 2044 characters alive, right? I guess we'll have the Titan.
Jennifer and crew.
Well, the Titan crew. What I mean is we won't have anyone at the base. The base doesn't exist anymore. We won't have Jones. We won't have any of the scientists. We're not going to have any of that. So it's going to be. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they'll be back. Don't worry. I'm pretty confident we're getting them back.
Oh, I am too. But oh my God, you guys have no idea my feelings. I'm like rubbing my heart right now, having feelings again.
Oh no.
I don't like to have feelings, everybody.
Yeah, anti-feelings.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, okay, so final predictions for the coming episodes, if you have any at all.
Well, I already unveiled my big one, which is that Sam is the witness, goes all two characters from Force Awakens that I don't want to spoil because I already spoiled it, and kills his own father, and that plot goes terribly wrong. But Jennifer survives. I think we can't have Jennifer die. She's too central of a character to kill off, and so that's my prediction. And then Cole and Cassie save the day together like old times in 1957. They like before put a dent in the witnesses' plans. They don't undo it by any means. It's going to be clear that the only way to undo it is to actually kill the witness, but they at least stall the impending Red Forest.
Yes.
What about you?
I'm on board with that. I've been playing with an idea because I still am on board with Sam being the witness, but I'm also, this is an idea that I'm playing with.
Okay.
Because you could still get almost everything you just said with this idea, but I'm playing with the idea that Cole could be the witness.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm probably wrong, everybody.
How would that work?
The idea that of all of the characters, he's the one who's traveled the most through time, and so he's actually the one who's really witnessed the damage that time can do, and he'll, all these terrible things. It's probably not true. It's almost certainly not true. But I guess it's just that, if there's any one character that has seen it all, and is a witness, then it's Cole.
That's true.
He's the first survivor of the serum. And he's, we've seen him do all kinds of crazy things with and without companions. So if we're going by the idea of somebody who has witnessed, it's Cole.
Yeah, and the show loves these little loops. It would be very interesting if, but yeah, it could be. It would just seem weird to me that Cole would exist in all times, but then still be living out his normal life.
Right.
But maybe. I certainly do not possess a mastery of the time travel mechanics on this show. So
it's a good reason for all the things we've been talking about how the machine needed to continue on and how the Witness wants the machine to work and all that stuff, because Cole couldn't be made into the Witness unless he goes through all of these adventures.
Yeah.
But they always call the Witness a he, so I was playing with the idea of it being Cassie, because that would be like the biggest fall from grace. But I don't think that would be possible.
What I'm hoping, and this is my hope for virtually every show, and it very rarely happens, but I'm hoping that there is some kind of paradigm shift with the show, and that the next season, if we're lucky enough to get it, will be drastically different. Mm-hmm. I always like when a show changes what it is fundamentally, and this is 12 Monkeys, as sort of progressive as it is in terms of the way it thinks about its story and its characters, is still fundamentally a show about people at a time base going on time adventures.
Yes.
You know, it is not structured like a procedural in any way. It has some episodes that are sort of procedural episodes, but it certainly places more emphasis on the serial storytelling. But I would love like a season that exists inside the Red Forest. Like, what even is that? You know, what would that be? You know, just like, right. I'd love to see something where the entirety of what the show is changes. And that I always like when a show has the confidence to do that. You know, when it just becomes something else, when something really fundamental changes. Maybe if Cole became the Witness and left the good guy team, you know, and Cole was now suddenly our time was split between the sort of Cassie and company and Cole and his evil empire or whatever, you know, like just something that really changes what the show is. Not that I don't like what the show is now, or that I wouldn't be happy with the season, but I always like when shows really push it. It's what I was always hoping Dexter would do. Mm-hmm. To bring up a show that started off as one of our favorites and became a sore spot because it got so terrible. But yep. I was always hoping that what would happen with Dexter is that as seasons progressed, he would become more and more feral, maybe more and more serial killer-y and less normal, and that the show would stop portraying him sympathetically, and that by the end of the season, he would be like a scary serial killer and not a sympathetic character, and that we would be rooting against our protagonist. I always was hoping that would be sort of the long-term progression of Dexter, that the show would stop being on his side over time, and that we would actually like shift the paradigm of what that show is, which is like seeing the personal life of someone who happens to also be a serial killer. It's like I was always hoping for that, and it never happened because Dexter was such a gutless show.
It was such a gutless show, but you know that was my reading, and we've talked about that a lot, that I read the last couple of seasons of Dexter hating that character and only loving the peripheral characters. But there's but that's not the way the show wanted you to
exactly.
read it.
The show, you could interpret it however you want, and certainly we take the power to do that, but I'm talking about the show itself consciously makes that shift. That the show really says, like, okay, this is what's happening. Like 12 Monkeys did this season with Cassie. I think everything about Cassie this season was very much intentional by the show. The way that they made us feel about Cassie was intentional. And I think a lot of fans probably went a little bit too far in being negative on her as she was sort of, as I lovingly called her, the Ice Queen, as she sort of became that character. I don't think that was a negative thing, but I think a lot of fans took it that way. But I think 12 Monkeys is very much cognizant of how they're making us feel about Cassie, and that this episode was kind of the return of Cassie as the character that we sort of recognized before the season, but with obviously a different set of experiences and outlook.
Like a molding of the two versions that we've been seeing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she's sort of, the pendulum is swung from one side to the other, and now it's in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm excited for these last two episodes, and I'm a little bit scared, and you know what, every time we make a prediction, or most of the time that you and I make a prediction, it's wrong, which is one of the things that's awesome about 12 Monkeys, because in our other podcasts, often when we make predictions, they come out to be true. So, yes. Which means that 12 Monkeys is something totally unique and unpredictable, and that's why we come back week by week.
It's doing something right. If us dummies can't predict it, it means that the show is doing something right.
Yes. This wraps up this episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Libsyn. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Check out my new podcast, Professional Geek Podcast, a show about how to be a professional and also a geek. And check out tvbinges.com to read Kyle and friends write about TV. Follow this show on Twitter at 12monkeys_pod, and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.